It's going live. We're going live.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Too hot, man. Too hot.
No, I got energy today.
All right, let's bring that down a little bit.
Don't tone me down. You're always toning me down.
Yeah, because you're loud, dude. All right.
Well, welcome to the show. This is Philosophy Talks.
With Caleb.
And Bill.
And...
Scream your names.
Tyler.
Louder.
Brandon.
Yeah. We got Tyler and Brandon in the studio today.
Yeah, we got Tyler. And Brandon Bilski is also in the room.
And it's great to have you guys here. And now my mic's all screwy.
No, that's okay. We'll deal. It's a little cramped.
Oh, I made up a little jingle for our show. I just came up with this earlier today.
Uh-oh.
Hello, hello. Welcome to the show. Everything you know is a lie! Just so you know.
I like it.
I don't think it flies, man. I don't think it flies. I mean...
But, you know, we need to come up with something catchy. We gotta have a theme song, yeah.
I just want to put this on the table. All the cool ideas you've had thus far, besides the show itself, we've got... that worked. But we've got Zeno's Paratalks. I'm just...
You want to do while radio.
See, that's clever. That's clever.
That is,
See? Yeah?
as far as puns
No,
go, that is really a stretch.
Well, Zeno's, we talk about like Zeno's Paradoxes like once, and then it no longer become relevant.
Well, still. Okay, yeah, maybe for the basis of like the name of the whole show, yeah, that didn't really work.
Do you know why Prince changed his name away from that weird symbol thing?
No.
Two reasons. One, because no one can pronounce it. And two, because people are always going, hey, dude, why is your name... Blah, blah. And he got tired of it, so he changed his name back to Prince.
Yeah, but you know how many smart little comments I've gotten when people ask me what the name of our show is, and I just say it's Philosophy Talks, they'll be like, oh, you guys are clever. And I'd be like, yeah. Shut up.
We're clever.
We are clever. You just doesn't really, can't really see that through our name.
Well,
Anyway.
we're stuck with it now.
Caleb, what are we talking about today?
Well, Bill, we are talking about human cloning, specifically the ethics of human cloning.
Well, I mean, can you really talk about anything else regarding human cloning? I mean, we're not talking about the mechanics of human cloning.
Yeah, well, we are talking
Okay,
about...
okay, yeah.
So so we're doing some existentialism, but I mean that is tied in ethics. Everything is ethics.
We're getting controversial today.
A little bit.
Actually, now that I think about it, really all the shows that we do now are on really controversial topics. Of course,
I like it.
Things get heated though.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah, last time things got heated. Whatever. Anyway, Caleb,
All right,
would you like to kick us off?
Let's kick this off with...
Yeah, what is cloning? Or at least what's the definition that we're going to be going by for the sake of discussion?
Well, all right, Brandon, you're up. You define this.
Jump on the mic.
Well, I guess cloning would have to be the
Little
cloning would have to be the I mean, I'm just going to use, I guess, synonyms here. The duplicating of, and are we particularly talking about human cloning? Are we expanding this conversation to also animals and other beings as well? So
For
human
this
cloning would be the replication of human using. They use stem cells, I believe, and they and use DNA injection, and bada boom, bada bing, put it in the scientific oven, and you get out another human being with the exact same DNA as you yourself. If you were to use your hair or your
The easy clone oven.
right,
Just put a little radioactive light bulb in there.
Boom, it's done.
Yeah,
And
I'd
you
buy
have
that. Great for the kids.
a cake that's relatively disappointing.
Ages 7 and up.
So human cloning then is you're just using some sort of like DNA, some sort of genetic material, and you're using it to duplicate something. I chopped this up into two basic categories. I mean, there's more than this, and this is pretty reduced. But you could talk about cloning in terms of therapeutic cloning and reproductive cloning. Okay, well, what are these? Therapeutic cloning is, in a nutshell, you're just using DNA or stem cells or what have you, or both, I suppose, to create either organs or limbs or something like that.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, something to cure a person who may have lost that organ or organs failing. So it's for medical purposes.
Right. You're not creating a whole new person that way. But this can be done actually with 3D printers, which if you guys have never heard of 3D printers, most people have heard of them at this point, but it's literally exactly the way it sounds. A printer that can actually take material and print a three-dimensional object. So you can print a wrench, you can print a table. They've even recently 3D printed guns and bullets, which, you know, that has its own ethical discussion around that. But I don't know if this has actually been done or not, but it is technically possible to 3D print meat, you know, edible meat or organs out of stem cells, essentially.
Yeah, there's a company, a little startup, that is planning on doing that. They're making 3D printed meats. So this on their line they have right now. They're not a public company. They're not selling things. It's in testing stages. But they've made steaks. They've made filet mignon. They've made bacon.
They made bacon?
They made bacon. So imagine this. It's the future. And it's 6 in the morning, and you're hungover, and I feel like crap. And you walk into the fridge, and you say, "There's nothing in the fridge." Well, you don't even have a fridge because it's the 21st century. And you walk over to the 3D printer, and you push the bacon and eggs button. And 5 minutes later...
And it will synthesize it out of a combination of proteins that come in a little test tube, as well as all the little... all the little flavorings and whatnot. You get the juices in there. Yeah, you basically create synthetic meat, but it is chemically the same as meat that you would buy in the grocery store today.
You know how you like to have those little like cupcake decorators? What do they call them? You know, you fill them with frosting. It's like a little squeeze tube.
It's not really how they work, though.
It's pretty much the same. I mean, you put the meat goop in there and you squeeze it out. And you're like, that's good.
Not quite.
T-bone steak.
Well, it's basically printed in layers. I mean, it takes a long time to do.
But yeah, same concept.
Technology, man.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's pretty cool stuff.
A little freaky, but kind of cool.
Just imagine.
No, yeah.
Like,
back on top.
Well, I mean, like, you know, on some movies that you buy, they'll have that little ad that runs at the beginning, like, you wouldn't steal a TV, you wouldn't steal a car, like, you wouldn't steal music, you know, because obviously you can, like, download music off the internet, but now, basically, you can just print out all these things. You can just print out a TV.
It's funny you mention that. There's actually a guy who is 3D printing a Porsche. It's a very rare Porsche. And so he's 3D printed the body for it, and some of the engine parts, all for about $5,000. That's pretty awesome, if you ask me. But yeah, so you can steal a car. Moving on. Back to cloning. The other one is reproductive cloning, and that's creating actual humans. You're reproducing humans, whether that means you are taking DNA and implanting it into sperm and eggs and whatnot, or you're creating a, what do they call it, a zygote?
Basically what you would be doing is taking somebody's DNA, taking the nucleus of somebody's cells from somebody who's currently alive today and planting it into a stem cell and then incubating it so that it naturally reproduces and multiplies, and you're creating a whole nother person out of that.
Which is how Dolly the sheep came about. Yeah. It was the same way. It's the same thing. You can do the same thing with humans.
Yeah, and that's not an isolated case either, because the first time we ever cloned anything was Dolly the sheep, and that was what, in 1997. Since then, we have cloned many, many, many different animals. It's not an uncommon thing, and we know the dynamics of how that works. And theoretically, we could clone humans the same way we do animals.
Not legally, though. It is illegal in just about every country.
Because that darn Geneva Convention always get in the way of scientific progress. Or are they looking out for our well-being? And that is the question that we're getting into today.
Dun, dun, dun. Okay, yeah, so those are the two types of cloning. We're going to be looking, for the most part, at reproductive cloning. I don't have any issue with therapeutic cloning. There's still a number of people who do, with regards to stem cells being either sacred or it's tampering with evolution, something like that. Some say it's a risky business. I don't see too much of a problem from a pure ethical standpoint.
Because you're immoral.
Well, yeah. That's not what we're focusing on, though. What we're looking at is reproductive cloning. And so there's a lot of complexities to this. There's multiple different ways you could play this out. There's different uses for it. So imagine you are infertile and you want a kid. Well, you can have a kid cloned, and bada boom, bada bing, done deal.
Or you could adopt. That is an option. Adoption. There are plenty of kids out there already.
Bill's saying that you could adopt, but I mean,
don't be selfish. You really need to bring more kids in the world.
Yes.
but you can't design your kid. And I guess that's kind of what we're going at. Oh, is that not working?
We're not
Really? Yeah, turn it up, man. I'm not screaming like Bill.
because I screamed into
Yeah, okay. So
you're louder than Tyler is.
yes, yes, you could adopt, but I guess what we're thinking is that hopefully, not hopefully, but we're considering this as a possibility that like after we are able to clone humans, we would also be able to clone humans like selectively and like actually engineer specific types of humans with specific like genetic expressions.
Designer children.
So that's kind of what I was getting at, is that yes, you could adopt, but you could also potentially just design whatever sort of child you want. So I mean, we're going to discuss the implications of that, you know.
So I wrote this down here as a half joke, but it's kind of sort of true. What if you could have Brad Pitt as a child? You could have your own little Brad Pitt.
That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, I'd want that.
Little Bradley.
Oh, he's so cute.
You're gonna be a Hollywood actor.
Except you won't, because I mean, you'd raise him.
Yeah, that's true. I would not trust myself with kids. But I mean,
We've joked about this before, that if we had kids, we'd, like, tell them, like, oh, no, this color, it's not actually red. It's called something called blue. Things like that. You just mess with kids.
and just make the rest of his life ruined as he's constantly being picked on and ridiculed for not even knowing what the color red is.
Basically.
Okay, fair enough. Well, can I keep Brad Pitt as a pet? Can I keep him on a leash?
Well, let's get to that.
Well, he came out of a test tube. Come on.
We're getting to that. All right. So, you want to take over?
I mean, I guess I.
We could get like a mail order Brad Pitt. It comes in. It comes with some a month's worth of feed for him and a little leash.
What do they call those things? Like a little.
Talking to the mic. Talking to the mic.
You pour the little. What do they call those? I had them when I was a kid. They're like sea monkeys. Sea monkeys.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like sea monkeys. But it's Brad Pitt.
They come in a little packet. You pour it in water, and all of a sudden you get little living things that are floating around. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like it's a sponge animal. It's like Brad Pitt. You just stick it into an incubator. Whether that, I mean, I'm not going to comment on what the incubator is.
Just add water.
Just add water, and 9 months later, out pops Brad Pitt.
Yeah, and you can feed them. You can feed them little nutrition pellets, made out of meat byproduct and wheat germ.
Or you can just 3D print him a steak. I mean, it's Brad Pitt.
That is very true. This is the future we're talking about.
Brad Pitt eats steaks.
Yeah, I would.
All right, but anyway.
I mean, I don't think, wouldn't they be the clone children would still be like, they would have to develop in some sort of like embryo or embryonic environment, right? I mean, so like I don't know how the Dolly the sheep thing works. I don't know if they like just put her in like, like the cliche sort of like cylindrical glass tube and just like grew it, like, or if it was actually just like a zygote that was engineered and like put inside of like another sheep, like the mother, for lack of a better term, and it just developed inside that and sort of natural,
I think we have the technology now to where it's possible either way. They cannot. It was difficult for quite a while to actually have it separate from the mother to actually clone, particularly if they tried to clone a human being. But if we get serious about things and think about the implications, like the dystopian implications of what cloning could mean, I don't know if any of you have read Brave New World and how they used. Oh, great. Brave New World scenario. Perfect. On the list. Oh, okay. Well.
You want to say something?
We're here.
But anyway, yeah. If we're thinking about this, if we get little test tube babies, and it almost seems inhuman. It doesn't even seem natural at that point. But I mean, they are still born genetically just as human as you or I. Just they didn't come out of a womb. They came out of a vat of embryonic fluid.
But I mean,
synthetic embryonic fluid, whatever.
Who's paying for it? Like it would be like the next step in elitism to have genetic babies who are. Is it the same thing? Oh
no. But we can use that as a good segue.
Yeah, no, we can use that. Can we touch on immortality really quick first?
Go for it.
Okay. Yeah, there's one thing before we move on I want to touch on that we kind of have ourselves for just a half second. Is the potential of immortality. This is one that's been talked about in science fiction a lot. So if you could clone yourself, like Brandon was commenting on, well, you could live forever, sort of. I mean, it would be two distinct consciousnesses, but it would be you walking around, talking around, and so you could have, I don't know, the immortal king of Bahrain, where he was the same king for like 1,000 years because he just kept cloning himself. Kind of cool.
Yeah. Or is it worth talking about the movie Prestige without really spoiling it?
Yeah, don't spoil the movie. Don't.
Okay,
that
well,
was
can
that
I- can
was
I
a
get-
good movie.
Can I give a spoiler alert right now to anybody who has not seen the Prestige to turn your volume down right now and turn it back up in about a minute? Okay.
Oh.
Okay, you gone? Okay, good. So you can't blame me for spoiling this for you because Prestige is a great movie and you should check it out. But if you have seen Prestige, in the movie, this magician, he comes up with this disappearing act, this machine that can actually clone him. And every time he steps into it, it makes a whole nother self. So his disappearing act involved him dropping through a trapdoor in the stage, and that self would actually die. And then his clone self would then appear in a different place. Now, it would appear to the audience that he was transporting to different places. But effectively, he had to kill himself every single time he performed this act. But his clone would continue to live on, and everybody who saw his clone figured that that was just him. They had no reason to believe that that wasn't the real him. But then what exactly do I mean when I say the real him? Anyway, because the original one had long since died. But yeah, in a sense, he could be immortal, but he has to keep on killing himself every single time he does that. Because if he were to have two versions of himself existing at the same time, then things would get a little complicated, and you can't have that. But anyway, okay, so you can tune back in now.
Want to know something funny? I've never seen The Prestige, and you just ruined everything for me. Yeah.
Oh man, well regardless, now you should watch it with an open mind. It does have very heavy philosophical implications to it. It's very, very interesting to think about.
It wasn't as good as The Illusionist, though. That was a better film.
I've never seen that, and you're not talking into the mic, Caleb.
That wasn't as
We
good as
just
The
have an empty,
Illusionist.
lonely mic just hanging there.
There was two magician films. There was a couple of magician films that came out at the exact same time that year. One was The Prestige, and one was The Illusionist. The Illusionist was way cooler. It was cool.
Whatever, I haven't seen it, but the Prestige was good.
Check it out.
Anyway, moving on.
Where are we at?
We're on to Brandon with Designer Children and Financial Stories.
So creating the perfect baby, you will always want the blue eyes, the big cheeks with the dimples and the blonde hair and the. I mean, that's not necessarily what you want, but
Yeah. You're sounding like Brandon. You're sounding like a Nazi a little bit. Right
stereotypically, well, actually, like people do say that they want blue-eyed children. There's this thing with blue eyes. Hello.
Yeah. now. Okay. So, just make sure you're
But
talking.
anyway, whatever color you like, pink, purple, you want maybe a stronger children. I don't know if any of you have seen the movie Gattaca with Ethan Hawke and Jude Law. Ethan Hawke is trying to get into this space program, and in this society there are like the genetically gifted or different, and it is an elitism. So if you were born into that, you are just inherently better in that society, so they're physically stronger and they're more apt to get the higher positions, military positions, or astronaut positions. It was only the genetically modified who got astronaut positions, and Ethan Hawke's character is not genetically changed. But
That was the movie I was thinking about. Yes.
his brother, however, Jude Law, is he was genetically gifted, and he was in the program to become one of the astronauts. However, he got paralyzed, so he's in a wheelchair, and so they decided, and it's been a while since I've seen the movie. I'm pretty sure this is how it goes, but the whole story is about Ethan Hawke trying to overcome the disparity between himself and the other genetically gifted people. So he, is a regular human competing with these other genetically gifted people. Think about that, trying to compete with them for jobs.
Right, and I believe actually in the movie, because he was given a natural birth, he was actually expected to die at a really young age. Like, he wasn't expected to live past the age of 18, but it was actually a miracle that he lived into adulthood and lived, he grew up healthy and fine, even though he didn't have all these genetic enhancements that everybody else had. But that is another thing that one of the potential benefits that you can get out of this is of getting designer babies is that you can eliminate all these birth defects, a lot of these genetic diseases like schizophrenia,
Other mental
autism, Down syndrome, which a lot of these are heavily linked to genetics, and you can completely eradicate these diseases that way.
Yeah. And we should bear in mind when Brandon was talking about the financial disparities. There's I mean, who's going to be affording these designer children?
Our bourgeois oppressors.
Yeah, bourgeois.
Yeah, that's what I said.
No, you said bourgeois. You said never mind.
Whatever.
But yeah, so the only people who can afford it will be the exceptionally rich. So you might have the situation where you've solidified a class disparity because you have the exceptionally rich who are superhuman, and then you have normal people and they make less money, and they can't break into the super rich fold, because to be super rich or to have the means, the physiological means to be this incredibly rich, you have to be a designer person. Yeah, you have to be perfect.
Yeah, and that comes with territory. The rich, they get the privilege of having extraordinarily high IQs, and therefore, they have much better capabilities of performing much better paying jobs. And the regular people, basically the bell curve for IQ would shift where the top of the bell curve average would then become like 140 or something like that. If you have an IQ of 140 today, you're a genius. But in the future, if we get designer babies, that could become average. So somebody with an average IQ today would be considered very, very stupid in that case. And they would have no chance in that world of getting a halfway decent job. They would be stuck with, the dead-end jobs, janitors, garbage men, gardeners, things like that.
I was gonna say, to follow up on like what you were talking about, being able to afford like these designer children. I feel like my little ticker is not moving at all.
Gotta talk about it.
I'm talking a pretty normal volume. There we go. Okay. So to follow up on like the ability or lack thereof to afford these designer children, I mean, there's not just going to be like one designer child that everybody can get, I guarantee that there will become some sort of market will develop with these designer children. So you'll have different like, yeah, absolutely, got to catch them all. But there will be probably different like levels of like, obviously there'll be different types. So some that are smarter, some that are stronger, blah blah blah, for whatever sort of child you want, whatever your preference is. But there'll also be ones that are like objectively based on what you value in your society better than the other designer childs. Or children rather. So they'll be like based on like how much you can afford, like you will have like better children, and then those children will give birth, and if they reproduce with one another, they'll give birth to better children too. So like you are literally, it's like capitalism being like realized in like a biological setting. So like you have capitalism, which is like this division of like wealth, and so like literally like the actual genetic code like of the constituents of that society will like reflect who has the most money. That will be like, I feel like this is exactly like what like the Nazis wanted, like it's what it seems at least, but I don't know. And then of course, you already have like a society, a socioeconomic like culture set up so that like different races obviously are correlated with different classes, so you have like, minorities that are obviously like, for the most part, located in regions where like the economy is not booming, so they don't have as much wealth as like the whites and like blah blah blah. So then you have like this culture of people who already is basically systematically set to fail, that will be like literally, it will become like impossible for them to get out of this slump of like inferiority that has already been set up by our society, and it will like become like the most polarized like capitalistic like hellhole ever. So that's my input.
I do like how you explain that, how it would create an actual market for races to kind of reflect stereotypical preferences. Like, say, if they were given the preference, sadly, most people would probably choose to have a white baby over a black baby. Just because in today's society, statistics show that there more likely to do better in society just because they're, because they're white. Not because that makes them any better as a person, but just because of the way the system is set up, they tend to have an easier time. So that, I mean, yeah, the mark would actually show a dislike for minorities. And yeah, in the long run, yeah, that would just create those discrepancies between races even more apparent. There'd be even a larger gap between them because they would actually. All right. Well, yeah, you go ahead.
So we touched on like class and race and how that would be affected and like how the system would like allocate those sort of things. But also, I think another interesting thing would be how gender and like gender concentrations would change, because like the system is, and we have feminism to counteract this, but the system is set up such that women are disadvantaged. And I mean, that's how it's always been in almost every society since like the dawn of time, of humanity at least. So like there obviously is this mentality amongst like the elite males that males are better. So if the elite males, the ones with the money, are the ones that are creating the children, the ones that are buying the children, most of them probably are going to be like less tended to buying like female children. Wouldn't that seem the case? So then you have this like the men are like the ones that are being bought by these really rich people, so they get the best designer children who, like I said before, are already like set to be like superior, and so they're probably going to choose men. So then the men of the society will be even more like superior, and objectively so based on their DNA, like the men, because these rich people aren't going to be purchasing women. So then the people that can afford like the women, you know what I'm saying? Like I feel like that's another issue that might occur. What, you were taking my mic away?
No, I knew I was checking your eyes, and I was right. You do have blonde hair, blue eyes. You're one of them, Tyler. You're a designer baby.
I mean, yeah, definitely. I was alluding to that because of the particular like involvement that they had with eugenics, and like how that bias shows itself regardless of the capacity of this technological. It's a technological feat to be able to do this and to be able to clone human beings, but the implications behind it just reflect where we are at as human beings. Like, what would we use it for? Regenerating organs, or eradicating difference and eradicating diversity and eradicating anything and everything that we don't like and that we don't appreciate? That just depends on the person who's given the power, no? So this brings us right to Brave New World. It's a very, very depressing story. I'm sorry I have to break it to you, but that's kind of part of what philosophy does, right? Truth and power. So the society is very, very much a dystopia, and the children are not born. They're bred, in that there's a class system, and there's different tiers, and each different tier, the children are given a different set of conditioning. So the lowest tier, and Aldous Huxley was really good with his science. He understood it well, and what he did was explained intricately how the babies, while they were being grown in their little bubbles in like a factory setting, you can just picture thousands of, maybe not thousands, but you have a factory where all the babies are, a bunch of cribs in one room. They're born, they're plopped down, kind of like the Matrix, but they're not necessarily being harvested for energy at that point. Oh, that's an interesting thought. We'll probably come back to it. The babies are conditioned, and there's actually less oxygen given to their brains, so when they're born, they'll just be naturally stupider, like more dumb. They will not have the capacity to become smart. But of course, these will also be probably the strongest of the designer babies, because they'll be the workers.
Yeah, basically, because you can't have a society that's all elite, because you do need a class of people to do the low-end jobs, to be the janitors and the people picking up the garbage and the people that are maintaining the grounds. So yeah, in the case of Brave New World, they are intentionally tainting an entire class of people so that they will be on a lower level in the hierarchy, so that they can do these jobs, intentionally making them worse off than they could potentially be.
Yeah, I mean, let's be realistic too. This is well, no,
I mean,
not face value.
that is like on the one hand, that isn't necessary for society to function, but to systematically warp it so that things work out that way without giving any kind of freedom of choice to where people are going to end up, or yeah, it pretty much restricts people to one certain class because that's literally what their genetics were twisted so that they could become.
Sure. Well, 2 points. Firstly, one, is that really different than today's society? There's a lot of barriers to entry and moving between classes. It's next to impossible. You have to really have the dice rolled in your favor, and you have to get a lot of assistance from various organizations or individual people, things like that. I mean, there are people who go to this college today who wouldn't have made it to this college if they hadn't have received assistance from like programs like the free lunch program, or from individual teachers who maybe took time out of their day to coach them through their studies, because you're not able to study if you come from a broken home, things like that. So it is very similar.
You can, but the odds are not in your favor.
Yeah, it's very slim.
You have a lot of disadvantages that way, but you still can move up through the hierarchy. You still can move up in the world. It's just much, much more difficult for you to. There are many more barriers.
Maybe. I'd say it's close to impossible. I would say it's very close to impossible.
I wouldn't put the odds that far to the extreme, because I have many friends actually who have come from really bad areas and really broken homes where both their parents are in prison, and they grew up with gang fights happening in the streets on a regular basis, but they end up doing pretty well.
How many million other children didn't get that opportunity?
Oh yeah.
So
I'm not saying
it's huge.
Mm-hmm.
It's huge.
And yeah, in a lot of cases, there could be a kid who grew up on the streets of Detroit, but he was born with an exceptionally high IQ. He was an extremely intelligent person, but because of where he grew up, he lacked any access to a formal education. And because of where he grew up, he was much more prone to get involved in gangs and drugs and things of that nature. So, I mean, he could be born with, genetically speaking, a great hand, but because of where he is, it could amount to nothing.
Yeah. So, at face value, this idea that you could create a designer society without thinking about the ethics of it, it's not so bad. I mean, imagine this. So you have jobs that no one wants to do, either that be military or garbage men, these low wage jobs that nobody really wants to do. In fact, we bring people in to these kinds of jobs from impoverished nations and exploit them. So, but what if we didn't need to do that? What if instead we could just create our own, and we could modify their intelligence, or we could just why do you even need to do that? We could just create normal humans and say, these are the jobs you're going to do. You have no say over the matter because we created you. And then you stamp them or tag them or whatever, and they go off and they pick up your garbage.
Right.
I mean, they're not. They could be lesser humans, or they could not be lesser humans, but let's assume they are. What are the ethical implications of that? Is it wrong to create? Is it morally wrong to create a subhuman? Well, that's fine. So if they are subhuman, if they're effectively like an orangutan or something like that, if that's what we're creating.
I mean, they have all the capabilities of doing work, but they do not have the capabilities to, say, think for themselves.
Exactly.
And that basically their sole purpose in living is purely utility.
That's why they were created.
Yeah, they were created with the sole purpose of serving the rest of society.
Exactly.
And if you're just strictly talking about economics, just economic stability, if all other things disregarded, that would actually be ideal for an economy, because things would be able to function perfectly that way. All the roles would be filled, and you could control the population so that you don't have more people than are desired. But is the value of a human life totally dependent on just what role they play in the economy? I mean, is our value just restricted by what kind of jobs that we can do or what kind of value that we can add to society? And we're a little bit more than that, I like to say. But are we? I don't know. Brandon, you have something to say about it. say something about it.
I mean, even these questions just show where our society is at in regards to, like, we are legitimately considering these questions. People are living every day as clones to a system that increasingly tries to exploit. Like, the minimum wage, if it were the same as it was 30 or 40 years ago, it would be around $20 an hour. Imagine, the prices of all the goods and services we have now are the same, but you make $20 an hour. Everybody at minimum wage makes $20 an hour. What kind of world would that be like? How many people would go to sleep, you know, peacefully, not having to worry about whether they could put food on the table the next day for their kids?
Doesn't seem odd that there is a very big assumption that standard of living, or rather just human happiness, or how good your life is dependent upon how much money you make, what kind of job you have, or how good the economy is going. Like, a country's status, its well-being, is most heavily portrayed by how their economy is doing. You know, what their unemployment rate is like, what the GDP per capita is, not necessarily what their total human happiness is. You know, like, happiness for the most part is measured in terms of dollars and cents. Yeah, that's how we measure our quality of life. But obviously we are more than that, because if we were just robots, if we were to take out the chunk of our brain that actually made us human, if we were then just organic robots, to just our sole purpose in life is to do jobs, and that's taken away from what makes us human. A lot of people say that the best way is just to leave things to up to nature, I guess, because to interfere with that would essentially be playing God. You're interfering with the natural order of things, and that's probably the biggest argument that you see against human cloning, is that to do so would be playing God.
Yeah, and to say playing God is obviously, I mean, you can take it literally if you're a theistic, but it can definitely be metaphorical in the sense that playing God, if you're like secular, you could just say playing like natural selection, playing evolution, and so like, and we kind of already, I mean, we don't do that yet, but I think we have that in mind. We sort of like have this sort of egotism that is like the focus of our lives, as like a species. We kind of like change the world and change everything around us, change our animals, change our crops, such that they benefit humanity. And so this is essentially doing that, but with humanity itself. So you have this group of elitists that is genetically engineering and cloning specific types of humans, like, and essentially evolving them and changing them according to some set of values. So you have a set of values, and whether that be like intelligence or like some sort of like, if you have a division of labor, you're going to have like people evolving in certain ways to satisfy certain roles. And so we say that's unnatural. And what does that mean? Is that a good argument? Can you simply say, oh, okay, it's not natural, so you can't control evolution, you can't dictate human evolution as a human, you need to just let it pan out? But what is the real difference? And I think the real difference is that whereas like natural evolution, like the way that it is, if you, I mean, I'm not going to say that you can argue evolution because it's a scientific fact, but it's predicated on perpetuation of DNA and like survival of a certain species. Whereas like if we are dictating evolution, it's not natural in the way that it's predicated on our own set of values and goals, and we create those, and that we're not going to be taking into account like other factors at hand, the rest of the ecosystem, the rest of the environment. And so we're going to be changing things and not considering like how this might affect our atmosphere or our plants or other organisms on the earth. And so it'll purely be benefiting us, and then it'll end up coming back and biting us in the butt. So I don't know. So that's, yeah, playing God.
Well, here's a small theory that I just thought of, that for a majority of humanity's existence since society really came about, we've been consistently anthropocentric. That's, the world revolves around humanity. But it seems like kind of what we're getting at now is rather that we're starting to look at our well-being as, I guess you could say, maybe econocentric, like centered around the economy, or societocentric. I don't know if there's actually a word for that. I'm just kind of making this up now. Yeah, capitalocentric. That basically that is the most important thing, not really the well-being of humanity itself, but how well off society or the economy is doing on paper. Not egocentric, because that's just like, I mean, that's just talking about the self.
Wait,
but if we're talking about like
it would be
yourself, it
egocentric,
doesn't
yeah.
matter. What matters is like the greater good, you know, the society type thing. Yeah.
Economically centric. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, you could say this as well.
I mean, this is something I like just came up with.
Yeah, well, and then somewhat contrast to like I wrote a paper on this earlier, and so
Oh, did you know?
I had this fun little comment that I thought it sounded very poetic. I thought,
Well, let's hear it.
but yeah, no. So, all right. So
No gesticulation necessary.
imagine this: society, since the dawn of time,
I like it already.
the dawn of time has been a struggle against God. So, in the earliest days of man, we beat the gods when Prometheus gave us fire, and then we beat nature when we managed to live inside, and then we beat the forces of nature when we were able to travel on around, things like that, through subways. We are, for the most part, becoming immune to God. We're beating God at his own game. I mean, you can say God, you can say nature, but you can imagine it like this. Yeah. So, I mean, you can understand why the Amish don't want to be involved in modern technology, because they say, well, as you're becoming more involved in technology, you are trying to become more godlike. It's like this Tower of Babel is synonymous to society and human nature in general. We're constantly increasing and consuming and we are the top, effectively, of the animal kingdom. We're the most successful species. Well, I mean, with the exception of, like, some insects and things like that. But what if we could win? So being able to play God and control evolution, that is the last nail in God's coffin. I mean, if Nietzsche was right, then cloning makes Nietzsche so right it's not even funny. God would sort of be dead because we wouldn't need him at all.
It's on Earth.
Yeah. So bear that in mind.
Still got the whole universe to.
It's freaky, man.
That was poetic, man. I was as soon as you start off with "since the dawn of time," I was preparing, like, I told everybody else in the room to not say anything, and then I was gonna do like a slow clap, but then you kind of veered away from the rhetoric. But I mean, still, that was beautiful.
Well,
that was
thank
beautiful.
you.
But it wasn't as inspiring as I was hoping.
It was much more inspiring on paper.
Okay. Anyway, so what we say is time to take a really quick break.
Yeah, two songs.
Two song break. Okay. What do we got?
Play some Kanye, man. I'm digging that new album.
I still don't know.
Easy in the house.
I still don't even know how to actually work the system here. Okay, I don't know what we're playing next, but here we go. And we're back. Hello. Welcome to the show. Oh, no, I'm not doing that again.
Yeah, please don't.
Okay, well, anyway, we are back. And we're going to wrap things up with the cloning debate a little bit. And admittedly, judging by what we've been discussing so far, you can probably tell where most of us stand. Maybe because everything that we've been arguing so far has been very against cloning and arguing about how it will lead to this dystopian world.
Potentially.
Yeah, potentially. But
Okay.
admittedly, I mean, we are professionals. Brandon laughed. We are, yeah, we arguably, we try to be professional anyway. So in order to do that, we have to remain unbiased, or at least attempt to be. So, you know, we're gonna play devil's advocate a little bit and talk about why
Free-for-all style.
yeah, why cloning could potentially be a good thing. We touched on it a little bit earlier, but we haven't really been arguing for it so far. But obviously, there have to be some benefits for human cloning. And yeah, one of the benefits, obviously, for designer children. Everything that we talked about so far was how this will create, you know, vast inequalities in society. But at the same time, if you can choose certain traits for your children to have, obviously they will be able to fare much better. If everybody who's born is born with a high intelligence, then that would be great for society, because we would have so much more technological advancements. We would be able to make alternative energies much more feasible. We could eliminate all these industries that we currently have that are destroying the world, and effectively the world itself could be better off in the long run. And at the same time, you can also eliminate genetic diseases. We could eliminate, what did I say before? Autism, Down syndrome, Parkinson's,
Anything,
schizophrenia.
Anything that's
Take your
genetic.
pick.
But I mean, bear on the other hand, if I'm not going to be able to afford to have designer children, you're probably not going to be able to afford to have designer
Well,
children.
then we are SOL.
Well, we are, and our offspring would be, because they would be the inferior race. I mean, literally, they would be the inferior race of humans. Like, there would be a positive genetic difference between the two, to the point where at some point it's likely that it could be considered an entirely different species. You know?
Yeah, possibly.
Homo sapien superior. I don't know.
Homo,
Yeah, Super
Yeah.
Saiyans.
Super sapien. Well, I mean, yeah, but by the sound of it, everybody will go with blonde hair. So, yeah, we will effectively go.
And their hair will defy gravity.
illusion.
Anyway, yeah, but there could be some benefits to the human cloning thing, and let's jump back to the therapeutic cloning. We didn't really talk about that whole lot at the very beginning, but therapeutic cloning, we could effectively clone new organs. Say, we can clone new hearts, so we won't have a shortage of organs for organ transplants. So we could help a lot of people that way. We could clone new limbs for people who have lost a leg due to diabetes, or even from a war, something like that. There are some benefits here. We got to look at the bright side of things. Tyler?
I definitely agree with regards to the therapeutic cloning. I think that is much less controversial than the reproductive cloning.
Yeah.
So I think that's why,
Yeah, definitely. In regards to the therapeutic cloning, you don't hear as many arguments against that. You do still hear the playing God argument against it a little bit, because it does seem inherently unnatural. But naturalistic fallacy.
Yeah. Okay. So what I was going to say is so I definitely, and I agree and appreciate like the positive outlook on like the way this could pan out. Have this like group of perfect humans, and like blah blah blah, everybody's happy and giddy, and there's no disease, no genetic disease at least, and whatnot. But I guess the question that we need to ask is, who's going to take out the trash? Like, who is going to do the janitorial work? Who's going to do these really low skilled like positions that are actually done better by people that aren't incredibly intelligent and incredibly elite, so somebody has to do those. Done better because they are more focused on like the specific jobs, are easily replaceable, like all these things,
Yeah,
and
they're not too busy. They're not too busy thinking about
this
quantum theory.
this crap. Yeah,
They're focusing on the task at hand, that is taking out the freaking trash.
exactly.
Not wondering about the meaning of life and whatnot.
Exactly. So let's assume that everybody is intelligent, everybody,
Well, what if they came up with more efficient ways of taking out the trash? Or
how can we get these
or
stats?
here's
What
an
if
argument.
we all just took out our own trash?
Well, we can't all do that.
Yeah, I don't do that.
Brandon figured it out. Brandon, you solved society. We need to get you to United Nations. Stat. That's the key to world peace. Everybody take out their own damn trash.
I don't think that's realistic, though, Bill. I mean,
No. Hear me out. Say, I mentioned this before. If everybody is cloned and gets super intelligence, okay? So everybody has at least an IQ of 150, okay? And then there are some people with an IQ of like 250 or something like that. But say if that were the case, I mentioned before, advancements in technology would skyrocket. We could eliminate the need for all of these blue-collar jobs effectively. And we could conceivably create a utopia where we can have robots do all of these all these manual labor jobs for us. So we don't need the people to take out the trash, and that would increase our leisure time.
I think that's presupposing too much, Bill.
Okay, I'm just saying I am presupposing.
No, but yeah,
I am presupposing, but I'm
A little
just saying
bit, yes, but I
that
think that's taking it too far.
okay, but we
I mean,
were
at the
we
same
were
t-
presupposing with the dystopian world as well.
I was in the same.
I mean, we are assuming that if we allow genetic cloning, that inherently it will create huge inequalities in social classes.
Well,
We
I
are
think that- I
we
think
are
there's a
assuming
difference,
that
though.
will happen.
I think there's a difference. I think it's an extrapolation to say.
Keep in mind, I am playing devil's advocate.
I know, but I mean, I think it's an extrapolation to say that if everyone's smart, society will be better for two reasons. One, because, so an extrapolation is,
irrational extrapolation.
So what do you mean extrapolate? You're taking your, you're taking a little bit, getting a lot. It's taking it too far, for two reasons. One, if you look at smart people are usually the worst people in society. No, it's true. I mean, what has intelligence been used for? I mean, intelligence has been used very effectively for genocide. Yada, 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 yada. I mean,
Really, that was the only one you could come up with, genocide?
okay, well, genocide, and then I mean, like,
Nuclear weapons.
They're not just
If-
going to be intelligent. They're going to be ultra compassionate. And
Yeah. Well,
all right.
We're going to
All right, so-
genetically
so
engineer
Tyler
them to
made the
be
point.
perfectly altruistic.
hold on a second. So Tyler made the point that all right, we could also engineer society to be ultimately altruistic. I don't think that's practical. I mean, looking at the way that human nature has played out from from dawn of time, it's been very much.
No. that is now the fourth time
that's
you
like
said
three.
dawn of time.
That's like three.
I think at least
Yeah,
three
it's
of those
three.
times was you as well.
Okay, well, that was before the show
Okay.
started.
Anyway, anyway, since the dawn of time.
Yeah, no, I mean, humanity is all about, like, jumping on top of the next person so you can reach a little bit higher. I mean, yeah, humans have a lot of compassion and yada, 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 but I'm not confident that if you were going to create a society that you would make everyone intelligent. What about the in-between stage between this ideal robotic future and the stage where you're making your hyper-intelligent clones? There's that point there where everyone's really intelligent, but people still have to do stuff.
Collateral.
What's going to happen? That's the collateral damage that might turn into something else. So if you have a person who's capable, more than capable, of being a doctorate, who is the best in their field, and everyone's like that, and they're taking out the garbage. They're going to get bored, they're going to get anxious, they're going to get restless. It's been shown that if you're more intelligent, your mind is more likely to want to be, dealing with different things. You're going to be more restless.
Underwhelmed.
Yeah, you will be underwhelmed, and that's going to lead to, I would, assume some sort of social unrest or chaos.
Yeah, that's a good point. That a lot more people would be dissatisfied, I guess you could say, with the way the world is. And yeah, I mean, some studies have shown that there is a correlation between intelligence and rates of depression, and not to mention anxiety. Oh yeah, definitely anxiety. But yeah, so if everybody is super intelligent and if they can't really be satisfied with themselves, then yeah, that could lead to widespread unrest with everybody being all life is meaningless. You get a bunch of nihilists walking around.
We could find.
Yeah, that sounds like your utopia, I'm sure, Caleb. But no, not if everybody was like Caleb Templar, no, the world would not be better off.
I mean,
I'm sorry.
Grand finale.
I think there is a different solution. I mean, and it might happen that once we have these genetically modified, humans who have an IQ of 360 or 720 or something, they
1 million.
they will have the capacity to communicate back to those of us who are lost in the dark, who are still lost in the cave. They will understand the mechanisms of our nature, but have such a profound understanding that they can change the way the world is and completely lead us out of the darkness. Maybe the profit is in this genetic shift.
No.
That was beautiful. That was beautiful.
I'm sorry, Brandon. I'm on the devil's advocate train, and I can't jump off.
You haven't been on the devil's advocate train at all. I've been devil's advocate. You've been shutting me down.
It was positive. It equaled.
Let's leave on a happy note, can't we?
But do we have
Give
to?
give the world
All
some
right,
hope,
all right,
Caleb.
fine. I'll post it in my blog. Yeah, all right. So
write about this in my blog.
we'll leave that at the end of the show, and then I'll write it in my Tumblr and eat cake and cry to myself.
Don't worry, I'll get you some Ben and Jerry's. We'll cuddle.
Awesome. All right. So I guess we're gonna sign out. Leave it on that note.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is human cloning. I've got a paper on it. I'll post that. And if you guys want, we're setting up a blogger thing. You guys can write whatever you want and just post it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, this is Caleb signing out.
And Bill Kinter.
And Tyler Adkins.
And Brandon Bilski.
Peace.
Cheers, guys.
Peace.